Hello, I'm Duncan Boyne, and this is the Power BI But Why, the same name as my newsletter, but in video form now, and this is the first one on the channel. It's all about not just how we build things in Power BI, but why we build in Power BI. So let's get to it. Power BI But Why, Power BI But Why, Power BI But Why. For 30 years, LEGO have made bricks in about 10 colours a year. Then the line starts climbing, 42 colours by 1997, and by 2004, 113. 5 years later, it was only 59. A toy company doesn't half its palette for fun. In 2003, LEGO was closer to bankruptcy than it ever has been. Nobody wrote that story down in colours. The data did that on its own. So yes, this is the Fabric Community Forums, and this is the post that went along with it. It's data days at the moment, so lots of things are going on. There's lots of videos, there's lots of guides up. There's a lot going on, but the bit that I'm really excited about is the Power BI Dataviz World Championships. Round one has been and gone, and I've selected winners. They actually selected two winners, which is odd. I've not done that before, but apparently they couldn't choose between them. We won't be looking at the winning ones, but here is all the information for everything. I didn't actually submit for round one. I half built it. I really enjoyed the bit I built, and I just couldn't get it to a point where I was happy with it enough to release to the public. Whereas round two, I've done it and submitted it, and that is the reason for this video. So round two is all about Lego, and it is based on the Rebrickable data. Rebrickable is a site. If you've been on it, if you've used it, if you know about Lego, it hosts everything you could possibly think about for Lego. Every single different piece, every set, manuals for them, where colors go, everything. And such a rich website. It's got really good data. That's probably why we're using it. So just going over the actual post that comes from in the Fabric forums. So it tells you how to submit, what you're doing for it, what's going on. If I go back to this, it tells us in detail that it's from July 7th to July 19th. I submitted mine on the 10th, which was yesterday, which is when the winners were announced for last one. And then I'm going to actually show you the gallery. So this is where people actually submit for the contest. We'll give it a quick refresh, see if there's any new ones. Our ones here, we'll be looking at slightly further in detail. There are some really cool looking ones already on here that people have submitted. And if we look back at some featured ones, we have past winners of different competitions, as this has been run in different locations around the world, different FabCons, all done by Microsoft. Last year's winner, which is one done on the stage, and there's about Peaches. Pretty cool. All the links for these will be in the description, so you can have a look for yourself. But without further ado, let's actually look at my submission and why I did it and how I did it. And here is my submission for Color Crash. I went fully in on looking at how colors have shaped Lego and its data over time. The fact that there are some really surprising things about the color yellow and red, which I had some presumptions before I had to look at this data, and I was completely wrong. But we'll dive into that. The one thing the submission process told us and the contest told us that really felt important was the key takeaway. It said you need a key takeaway within your report. It's 50 words or less that really defines the story you're trying to tell. What I wrote was, for 40 years, Lego built everything from a dozen colors. Then the palette tripled in 7 years while the company nearly went bankrupt. Well, nearly collapsed. In 2004, Lego cut its colors almost in half. Its golden age followed. More colors didn't make Lego more creative. Discipline did. And that's a real life story. They really did nearly go bankrupt, and we're going to see the explosion of color and how things have changed over time. There's also some tidbits in here about yellow and red that I find really interesting and quite surprised me. So from this homepage, I really wanted something dramatic. I wanted a big visual that told a story and intrigued you, which is kind of this Art Deco sort of looking, I'm going to call it a mess. It's a river of color, and it tells the story from Lego's beginnings in 1949 to where the data set finishes in 2025. You can see some massive peaks and troughs with different colors. You can see tiny bits of pink at the top. You can see white at some years had a 58% of all Lego pieces made. So I will say the caveat on that is, if there is a set of 100 pieces and 90 of them are yellow, or 90 of them are white. I'm talking about individual different pieces. So a 2x1 brick or a 2x2 brick or a Lego head, they are different pieces. It's not the quantity of the pieces, it's individual pieces. So in 1956, 58% of them were white. There's some really interesting things in here, because when I imagine Lego, the first colour that comes to mind is yellow. It's the faces, it's the logo, it's what makes me think of Lego. Lego has obviously changed, and so has the logo over the years. It's red with a red background with a white logo on it. But like those colours that you think of and associate with Lego, which is yellow and red, went from being massive shares of the bricks in sets all the way down to yellow is now 2.7% of all things made is done in yellow, like individual pieces. And for red, we're down to 5.2%, which is not something I'd have expected, but it's cool, it's different. There are a couple of colours in here that I'm mourning myself, because my Lego sets from across the years have been grey. Every single piece of Lego I kept from a child, there is these two colour greys that just reminds me of classic Lego. But we'll look into that. So it's not, like I said, this channel is not just about the how, it's about the why, and why have I done these things. Well, I wanted to give a visual that no one else was going to do. And I'm a big fan of the custom visual Deneb. I talk about it. I've literally given talks at user groups and conferences about Deneb. Massive fan of it. And that's what I use for this one. And I'm going to go to the first page, which I call Act 1 Mania, which was this colour explosion that happened between 1997 and 2004, which really set the tone for why Lego struggled. It's almost like they were trying to do too much at once, and especially in a period of time where you couldn't get away with that. It's almost like in the modern age of social media and the way the internet works, you can just throw everything at a wall until something sticks. But when you're already struggling as a business, that's not the way to go about it. This little visual here, also built in Deneb, is every single new colour that Lego released in that time period. Some of them survived, most of them didn't. So I'm going to click on a couple just to give you an example. So light salmon, it was there for 5 years. 180 different parts were made using that colour. And the most made part was a wall panel. Yeah, pictures down here. I made sure that if you clicked on a swatch, you could actually look at some of the bricks. This light bluish grey, I'll come back to that. That is what actually replaced the grey from my youth. But we'll come back to that. So then we've got this colour here. We've got lime, which is still being made for 26 years and is now in 42,000 different parts, which I think is really cool. And the most common one is the tiny little one stud. You'll see that as a trend because a lot of the smaller pieces are the ones that are made the most. Neon red was for 3 years for 22 parts made, and a large figurehead connector was the most common piece for that one. There are some wonderful colours in here. I believe this one, oh yes, the most made part for this one is a frog. I do like this. I do like this a lot. Actually, most common part is a foot. I want to look like a frog. I'm going to roll. But yes, this page is about the explosion, and it's more about from the humble beginnings and the actual starting of, they had their base colours, when they started adding colours, how did it go? And then that 1997 to 2004 really did explode. Act 2, the Purge. This is when they had to scale back. This is when they had to get rid of a lot of things. And as you can see on this bar chart, like it steadily crept up with how many new colours they were introducing. And then this is the 2003, and then from 2004 they start getting rid of them properly. While they were getting rid of a few colours a year before then, it was being 5-6x by how much they brought on. The biggest casualties, like I said, light grey. Light grey was in 25,000 different sets. Anyone who owned Lego before 2000 set had this colour somewhere, and probably still does, if in the side of their sofa or on display. The parts ever made, 92,000 different parts were made in that light grey. And that dark grey is that second one that I'm talking about. Like those two are quintessential to early Lego sets. 7,796 sets, 22,300 parts. There's some other colours in here that have been replaced, and you can tell like pink is one that got replaced. There's lots of different pinks. There's lots of different variations and varieties they're going to give for these. and then Act 3 is the golden age. So I always talk about the logo. I said about it earlier. I am shocked that the colours that actually represent Lego aren't used more. But that also ties into how Lego has changed. As a child, Lego was aimed at children. I very much feel like Lego has kept up to date with those children that were building Lego and started making more and more adult sets. Even if we look at slightly a different trajectory than the color theory, is that the biggest sets that they've ever made, like before 2017, there wasn't that many big sets. In fact, their biggest set in 1996 was 2,542 different pieces. There's now several, I think there's three, yes, three that are over 10,000 pieces each. The world map alone is over 11,000 pieces. These sets aren't being built for children. Look at the age brackets on them. They're like 12 plus and stuff like that. I know that Lego famously does from the, age 0 to age 99 plus, and they then upped it to over 100 when Sir Attenborough passed over 100 years old. But it feels very much like Lego is being advertised more and more and more for adults as well as children, and I think that reflects in the set. There are some other figures that tie into that. The average set size in 2003 was just over 100, and modern day it's over 400. Sets are getting more and more pieces in it. They're more and more complicated. There is currently only 78 colours in production. At its peak, it was well over 130, and yeah, it's surprising and cool. I'm a massive nerd, and I'm open about that. I love Power BI. It's my day job. It's what I love. I love doing it. That's why I do things like this. I also love Lego. I like being a nerd. These two worlds get to collide in this report, and I'm so happy for it. I'm so grateful that there's a competition for it, because now I get to actually show my ultimate nerdiness of wanting to do data storytelling, especially on something that I do love. And then we've got the last page, which is the about page. Two jobs on this page. The first one is trust every number I've shown you comes from the competition data set and nowhere else. The near bankruptcy is public record from Lego's own annual reports and the press at the time. The pallet crash is in the data where the two meet. That's the story, and this page shows the workings. 27,069 sets, 275 colours, 1949 through to 2025. The trend stops at 2025 because 2026 and 2027 sets are still being announced, and a half full year looks like a decline. This is a report about a crash. It didn't need a fake one at the end. Books and gear with 0 parts are excluded from the set size stats, and every set counts its latest inventory. The second job is accessibility, and this is a really big one. This report is built on colours and talks about colours. Ironically, myself included, I'm colourblind. I struggle with colour theory. I very much have to use external tools or people to help me with colour theory. So it needs to be up to scratch for people to understand it, regardless of how they read, view, listen to things like this. So every single visual has alt text. The alt text says what the chart actually means. The palette swells to 113 colours in 2004 and crashes to 59 by 2009. If you're using a screen reader, you get that story, not a description. I need it to be that anyone and everyone can use this. Tab order follows naturally the reading order, but by default, Power BI tabs through visuals in whatever order you happen to create them, which is normally quite chaotic. I set up by hand so that anyone that can navigate it actually gets the story in the way that I've intended it to be. I did a lot of tests on text. Can never say that correctly. For WCAG AA on the dark canvas. I like using dark themes. Dark themes are often quite difficult to pass WCAG on because of the contrast you need. But everything on here passed. Grey on black looks classy right up until someone actually needs to read it normally. So yes. And colour is never only the encoding that matters in any report. In this one especially, this is about colour. If it needed perfect colour vision to read, that would be a choice. Every key mark is labelled so the story still lands even if the colours don't reach you. So that is my submission, the colour crash, to the Power BI Data Visualizations World Championship. We got to tell a story. in color, in Lego, in all things amazing. We got to see the bigger sets, all the different colors, the ones that have been retired, the ones that had far too many parts, far too many colors for the same color that exploded and then got retracted. We got to see all of it. Out there are lots of people with data that need a storytelling, not necessarily a report, not necessarily a dashboard, but they need the journey that something like this takes you on. This is a brand new channel, so please do subscribe. And this is again Duncan Boyne from the Power BI by Why. Thank you.